Hello ladies and gentlemen and welcome to Unit Lost. I am Stylosa and let's talk about Hanzo because Hanzo's had a lot of different changes that have been applied to him recently on the PTR, which is of course the public test region. Now, Hanzo on live is not the best DPS, okay? Because he's very inconsistent. There are heroes that are just simply flat out better than Hanzo, in which case you would never really take a Hanzo, apart from a very select few kind of situations which can kind of apply to any hero, right? So you would always take, you would take a McCree instead of a Hanzo, you take a Soldier instead of a Hanzo, you just really wouldn't take a Hanzo. He's too inconsistent, that's the problem. So what have Blizzard done to him? Well, they actually updated the PTR a week ago now, and this is what they did. Hanzo will now experience a 30% decrease in speed while aiming. So what this means is, this is instead of a 40% decrease. This means that he's actually faster when he draws the arrow back. Like you can see him moving around with the arrow drawn back there. He moves quicker. This makes Hanzo feel much better because before he kind of felt slow, right, when he was walking around. I agree with this. This is a good change. They also increased the projectile speed by 30%. That means his arrows now fire, well, they travel through the air 30% faster than they did before. This is huge because this means you are now more consistent DPS, and that's the issue with Hanzo. We need consistent DPS to make Hanzo viable in the game. They also reduced his arrow size by 33%, but I think then they went back on this and basically his projectile size was set to the old Hanzo projectile size before the other nerf that happened a couple of weeks ago, which reduced the projectile size of basically every projectile in the game. So what we had is, in fact, let me just go over what the developer comments do say about that quickly. So Hanzo has the potential to deal a lot of damage, but he can feel really inconsistent, even at medium distances. By increasing projectile speed, we're extending his reliable range, making it easier to land shots without having to perfectly predict enemy movements. To compensate for the increased projectile speed, we've decreased the size of his arrows, meaning that his shots now require a bit more accuracy. Okay, but then they since increased the size of the projectiles on the PTR to just the way they used to be for like original Hanzo. So you had Hanzo firing what were effectively tree trunks, that was a nice kill of the Riptire, all over the place like a goddamn crazy person, and it was totally ridiculous. So this is what they've since done to Hanzo, since all those patch notes that I've just read off to you just. So Jeff Goodman, who's the principal designer, says Hanzo is feeling great on the PTR, and a lot of people have given feedback that he might now be a bit too strong with these changes. The goal of these changes is to allow Hanzo players to feel like they have more control over the shots, and skilled Hanzo players can still be more consistent. While this is certainly true now, it might be a bit too easy to land very powerful shots with a combination of his new projectile speed and his old projectile size. Therefore, we've reduced the projectile size by 33%. So what they've done is we've got a Hanzo that moves faster now when he's got the arrow drawn. We've got a Hanzo that fires arrows 30% faster through the air, which is huge. And we've got a reduction in his original projectile size by 33%. So they're not as huge. All of this footage you're seeing in the background is me using the current Hanzo. So on the PTR, this is Hanzo with his reduced projectile size. So it's not straight up massive tree trunks for firing out that are smashing everyone in the head. And you can see in the video that I'm getting some effective use out of Hanzo on Icon Bolt. I still think he, in this state, is very map sort of dependent, because this point on Icon Vault, there's a lot of sort of small chokes where you can spam arrows down. He's kind of like Junkrat in a way. That's sort of where I'm seeing Hanzo, where he's not reliable DPS, but if you know people are choked up, you can just spam the choke and you're probably going to land hits. You're probably going to land shots. I mean, Hanzo does have options, right? You've got Scatter Arrow when people jump into you. Again, it's not 100% reliable. Most of the time, a lot of the arrows will hit people. You see, I tried to kill Tracer just, and I missed. Like that area over there, I can fire the ultimate through there if I wanted to. I don't think I do, but I could if I wanted to. They're all bunched up and it could be effective. What I want you guys to tell me in the comments below is, do you agree with these changes? And what actually do you think needs to happen to Hanzo? Because I don't think Hanzo is finished. Hanzo feels better than he does on live, on the PTR, but he still feels like there are other characters that will do what he does and simply do it better, which to me is not a great kind of hero design thingy to have. You know, Hanzo needs to have his own sort of thing. He's very fun to play, don't get me wrong, but when I think about competitive and where you would use Hanzo, I just don't feel like he's there just yet. Alright guys, I'm in Stylosa, so this is Unit Lost. You can follow me on Twitter, which is @UnitLostGaming, and I'll catch you next time. Toodaloo.